Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me here today. Last week, during a special meeting of the Monroe County Legislature, legislators approved a measure that would create 6 new supervisory positions at the Monroe County Board of Elections at a cost of approximately $500,000 a year. These are entirely new positions that were previously unfunded. And to account for that, they would be direct chargeback to Monroe County taxpayers on their county tax bill. This will raise taxes in Monroe County by $500,000. This is simply unacceptable, and I'm here today to announce that I have vetoed this resolution. My administration has been working with the leadership at the Monroe County Board of Elections to address staffing needs, many of which have developed as a direct result of the impact the COVID-19 pandemic is having on the June primary elections and an influx of 40,000 absentee ballot applications. We have been open and transparent about our willingness to assist the board with their staffing needs for this election year as they prepare to process this record number of absentees for the upcoming June primaries and anticipate an increased need for absentee ballots in the fall election. We have had multiple conversations with the board and have already committed to increasing seasonal staff as they prepare for this challenging election year. As early as June 8th, the Board of Elections will have 22 new seasonal employees, nearly 3 times the typical number of positions for this time of year. The positions needed to manage this issue are important and are being addressed by our commitment to adding this unprecedented number of employees who will be responsible for processing the absentee ballots. The action the legislature took last week is not about being better able to process this influx of absentee ballots. The action the legislature took is about creating 6 highly paid supervisory positions that are political appointees and cost taxpayers $500,000 a year. It will not stand on my watch. Despite our ongoing discussions and commitments to properly staff the Board of Elections, at no time did anyone from the board or the county legislature Republican majority approach my administration about a supposed need for these 6 supervisory positions. In fact, it is clear that they did not want a full vetting of this proposal. My administration did not find out about their plan until the county legislature majority circulated the matter of urgency at 11:29 a.m. on Tuesday the 26th, a mere 6 hours before the meeting was to take place. This is simply unacceptable. It is the wrong way of doing business. It is the wrong way of running a county government, and it reeks of the patronage ways of past administrations that county residents rejected in last November's election. At a time when so many residents, families, and businesses across Monroe County are facing economic crisis and dealing with difficult financial decisions, including Monroe County government itself, the members of the Republican majority think it's a good idea to add 6 new patronage positions to take care of their political allies. A mere 4 days before they introduced and approved this measure, I briefed members of the county legislature and then the public about $47 million in necessary cost reductions to help close the budget deficit we're anticipating as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic and our local economic shutdown. The cost-saving steps I outlined even included a hiring freeze or delay of over 400 unfilled county positions, many of which could directly impact the programs and services our residents depend on every day. It took 4 days for them to turn around and put a $500,000 burden right back on taxpayers. Had any other county department come to me with a similar request, I would have been obligated to reject it as well. While I fully support the Board of Elections' efforts to ensure our elections are fair and valid, I do not believe that adding these 6 positions, all of which are at the supervisory level, without job descriptions or clearly defined duties, will address the staffing issues raised by the Board of Elections leadership. The board's leadership itself acknowledged that this would be the first reorganization of the Board of Elections in over 30 years. I truly believe that any restructuring of this magnitude should be given further consideration and open dialogue through a regular legislative process, not 6 hours before rushing into a final decision. The disappointing reality is that in some ways, the action taken by the county legislature Republican majority does not come as a surprise. From the party that brought you the failed Cable Act, an attempted power grab aimed at overturning the clear demand by voters in this community for a new way of governing, comes this latest effort to create and protect patronage jobs on the backs of hardworking Monroe County taxpayers. Despite all of that, my administration has been open to working in a bipartisan fashion to deliver programs, services, and resources to the people of our community. I have worked with the county legislature majority to pass the Climate Change Advisory Board, to repeal the police annoyance and harassment bill, and many other important measures. My door is always open and my phone is always on. I am hopeful that the members of the county legislature will continue to have open dialogue with my administration on important proposals and measures that impact the people that we are all elected to represent. Thank you, and with that, I can take any questions that the media might have.
Okay, first up is Jeremy Newell from the city, and then Randy Gorman City Newspaper, and then Randy Gorman from WXXI.
Adam, you said you have already vetoed this legislation, correct?
I just signed the veto a few minutes before this press conference.
Okay, great. And I guess what is the primary reason for the veto?
As I laid out before, that the resolution that was presented to us was given 6 hours before a county legislature meeting to create 6 new supervisory positions at a cost of $500,000 to Monroe County taxpayers. The right way to address issues within the Board of Elections in terms of processing ballots is to have an open, fair dialogue about what those needs are. It's not to create supervisory positions at the last minute. It's to have line staff who can process the absentee ballots that are coming in. And as of June 8th, there will be nearly 3 times as many of those seasonal staff people in place to get the job done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Randy Gorman from WXXI, and then Wendy Wright from Spectrum.
I think I'm actually all set, Julie. Thank you. You could move on to the next person.
Thank you, Randy.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Wendy?
Hi there. Wanted to touch base with you. I had a question, an off topic actually, in regards to any preparations that the county is making when it comes to potential rallies and planned rallies for Friday and into the weekend. How is the county sort of mobilizing and preparing here?
Sure. Well, we have many conversations every day. Yesterday afternoon, I had a conversation with the county sheriff, the city police chief, our director of public safety, and the governor's office to discuss preparations in place to make sure that there was manpower in place to manage those what I would hope are peaceful protests that could be coming this week and any potential aftermath after that. What we saw happen on Saturday night this past weekend cannot be allowed to happen in our community. The images that I saw when I stood there on Saturday night outside the public safety building is something I never imagined I would see as a leader in this community. And that kind of behavior, that the rioting, the looting that took place on Saturday night is unacceptable and will not be allowed to occur in Monroe County.
So could you just, to clarify, how are you preparing to make sure it doesn't happen?
Well, like I said, we are going to make sure that there are that enough law enforcement personnel are activated for this weekend. We had conversations with the governor's office as we did Sunday morning about activating additional troopers from New York State Police to be here. And so we continuously monitor the status of what's planned protests, rallies, and threats that are also made against the community, and they adjust in real time what those threats are. But we have those meetings and conversations throughout the day, every day, and we will make sure that there's enough presence in the roads. We'll also be able to, we have other tools at our disposal. I think there's no question that the presence of the New York State troopers on Sunday evening, coupled with a curfew that was instituted by the city of Rochester and by Monroe County, and the participation of our residents to make sure folks stayed home after dark and at night, I think contributed to a relatively peaceful evening here Sunday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rebecca Pfaff from WROC, followed by Jennifer Lukey from WHEC.
Hey, Adam, I'm actually all good. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Jennifer?
Hi, I have two questions, one on topic, one off. On topic, are you at all concerned that there is a lot of overhead that needs to be handled with these mail-in ballots? And we've already heard from folks who are getting 2, 3 ballots in the mail. There's a lot of confusion around what's going on with voting this year. Are you concerned about that?
Well, clearly there's a lot more absentee voting this year than there usually is. And that is why we have met with the Board of Elections staff. We have offered to be as helpful as we can with the leadership there and offered to be as helpful as we can in filling positions. There are positions there that are double filled. There are positions, line staff positions. As of next week, there were 3 times as many seasonal employees who work there. And we are happy to continue to work with them to fill additional seasonal employees as the need arises. But what we're not going to do is sacrifice Monroe County taxpayers' hardworking dollars for 6 new political appointees that are supervisory level jobs in board elections with almost no notice, no public debate, and with no job descriptions, and no real understanding of how this will impact the reorganization of board of elections. That's not the way a county government operates. A county government should be thoughtful, deliberative, and we need to make sure we get to the root of any issues that may exist. And I think that it is directly attributed to the line staff that they have, the seasonal staff that they have. But we don't just create 6 new supervisory positions with 6 hours notice. That's not how you solve a problem.
And then just off topic, are you concerned between the protests over the weekend and early this week and starting phase 2 about community spread of COVID-19?
I'm always concerned about community spread of COVID-19. I think, though, that we have seen by and large from this community participation in masking, social distancing, sanitation, hand washing, and following the guidelines of health professionals and science. And I think you can see that even on the images that we've seen as we move into phase 2. We stepped up last Friday night, and I want to thank our team here in Monroe County, the Department of Environmental Services, for helping to provide face shields to our barbers and stylists so they can get open, but do it in a safe way and meet the state's criteria. And if you even look at images from over the weekend of the rallies, the peaceful rallies that took place Saturday afternoon, by and large, everyone was masked. And if you look at Sunday morning, the cleanup event that happened out of Frontier Field, by and large, most people wore face masks and tried to do this in a very safe way. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks, but I'm very proud of the way this community has stepped up to the challenge that this pandemic has brought to us. We are a caring community that wants to support each other, and I think really does understand that wearing those face masks is important to slow down the spread of the disease. And I think the evidence of that is in our numbers. We were one of the first regions, if not the first one, where they announced that we can enter phase 1. There's a minimum time between each phases before they open, and at that minimum time of 2 weeks, the Finger Lakes region moved into phase 2. So I think right now things are going very well in those phases, and I would anticipate, because there's so much participation, that we'll continue to do well into the next phases to come.
Okay, next, Patty Sinner from Minority Reporter.
Hi. So the seasonal workers, what is the cost of those, and what budget line does that come from?
Well, to hire additional seasonal workers, that comes from efficiencies that we find within the current year's county budget. And it also comes from the CARES Act. Because the Board of Elections, the influx of the absentee ballots are a direct result of the CARES Act and the fact that absentee ballots are more widely available, the funding for the additional seasonal employees can directly go towards the CARES Act funding that the county received.
And so for each election cycle, are there seasonal workers that are hired, and in a normal year, where does the funding for them come from?
Well, it's a chart. So this is the way this works. So the CARES Act this year will pay for the additional seasonal employees that are directly attributed to the increase in the absentee ballots. The Board of Elections itself is reimbursed to the county through a chargeback on property tax bills to property taxpayers in Monroe County. That's why this proposal is in my view inappropriate, and this is why I vetoed it today. Because this creates 6 reoccurring positions, supervisory positions that will now be encumbered into future years that will be paid for by a chargeback on a county property tax bill. That's not the way to do this. We are facing an influx of absentee ballots this year that can be done and help supported with CARES Act dollars that the federal government has supplied to localities across the country, including here in Monroe County, so that it does not have to be an increase in the property tax payments that our residents are going to face.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That does it for questions.
Okay, great. Thank you everybody very much. I appreciate seeing you all here today.